I hate clickbait. I'm gonna get straight to the point. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna talk about some stuff, but I'm just gonna show you super quick. Just look at this. Let me grab a snare. Let's just grab this one and generate. We're gonna get 4 cells. What just happened was I dragged in the snare over here and then it generated 4 new ones based off of that. Very simple. That's all this is. You can end the video here now. Let's try that again. Let me click generate again. And if you're familiar with Midjourney or something, like this is essentially very close to what's happening there. We're getting 4 cells based off of this one. Not bad, you know? Let's try a little more variation. Let's click generate again, see what happens. So you can see what's going on already. This is why I'd rather just show you rather than explain it. Alright, so we're getting all this kind of noise and stuff. So at this point, I will explain a little bit. So this is called Deep Sampler. It's in the alpha stage right now. It's by this company Audiolab. They make this thing, Emergent Drums. It's a drum machine, but all the drum sounds are generated with what's called a GAN. It's a generative adversarial network. GAN? GAN? Not Jan. That's a different Jan. I won't go into what Emergent is. Look it up though. It's really dope. It's really fun. I have had a little bit of an affiliate link for them, so you can check it out if you want. I'll put it down there. But anyway, this thing is their new sort of model. If I understood it correctly, this model is working based off of diffusion. Some stuff that you can do with this, each cell has these 3 little things here. You can click download. So if you like one, you can click here and it'll download it. You can heart and it'll throw it down here where you can kind of store your favorites. And useful way of using it at this point at least is you could just throw in some sounds that you like a lot, that you maybe reference a lot anyway, and then just store them down here. And then instead of having to go into your sample collection and like always dragging them in, you can just go here. Like here's this same snare, and I can just, like let's say I was using this. Yeah, here this little icon will send this cell over to this cell, and then you can generate based off of this one. But let's say I want to use this one, I can just click here and that will now be the one that everything is being generated from. You got the heart, you got the send function, and you got the save. You got the 4 cells, and then you got this variation slider here. And the variation works exactly the way that you'd think. When you go to the left, 0.1, that's going to be the least amount of variation. And you go to 1, that's like 100% basically. You can think of it as like a whatever 0 to 100 mix. I've already made some recommendations to this stuff, and I'm sure other people will be making a lot of other recommendations. And like I said, this is just in the alpha stage, so very, very bare bonesy. It's only online on this website, but who knows where it'll go in the future. I'm definitely super excited for this type of technology in general. But yeah, let me just mess around with it a little bit more, just show you a couple other things that it can do. Let's try a kick this time. Let's try like a, let's see, tight. Let's try that one. I forgot, you gotta reset before you can generate, so let's do that. Throw this guy in here and click generate. Let's do zero variation again. I like to see what it does with the least amount of variation, because that's to me is the most useful way of using this. Because a lot of the times what I'm looking for in samples is like, you know, like for let's say this one for example, I'm like, ooh, I really like that kick, but I would like there to be, it would be a little different. So this one's like an interesting way of kind of letting AI do that for you. So there's the original, and there's the variations, and I've definitely come to find that like with these types of kicks especially, it's very good. Kind of reminds me of, there's another tool out there called Backbone. I'll show you real quick what it looks like. It's very good for kicks as well. Different company. I've been using Backbone previously to generate kicks because I just found that it was doing it really well. Here you can see it's actually called Drum GAN. It'll say here. I can click. Here's the kick slider, I'll click new here, and boom, that's a brand spanking new kick. That's nice. Let's try a different one. Let's do a little variation of that, actually. You can see they're all like nice kicks. Anyway, so that's what I've been using for kicks previously, and I probably still will, because there's a lot of cool things the Backbone can do. But anyway, this, check that out. All very usable kicks. A lot of the time it'll generate this sort of weird, funky, white, noisy noise stuff with a lot of samples. So, just artifacts. Sometimes that's cool. That's kind of like fun. You get this weird thing. You might be like, ooh, you know what? I like that. I'm going to make a kabasa out of that. Another function you can do is this quick record mic thing. I'll show you that super quick. Basically, you can just record your mic input. So I'll do my best. What do I want to imitate here? Let's do an easy one. Let me imitate a hi-hat. So I'll click record, and it'll give me a countdown here. Alright, so there's my hat, and I'll click generate, and let's see what kind of hats we get here. Kind of more sloppy. Like, that's mine. I'd like a shorter one, so let's see what happens if I generate again. That would be something I would like the model to do when the variation is basically 0. I would like it to adhere way more to the actual dynamic and the length. And you can see all these are like not very useful. Not sure if it's just because the actual recording of the sample is, when you're doing it through the mic, it's not understanding, it might be hearing some of the background noise and stuff. So let's get rid of that. Actually, I'm pretty positive that's what's happening there. It's somehow not understanding that the only part that I wanted to generate is the real mass there. So if I drag in just like a hat, let's say generate here. Okay, still getting these tails. So not ideal. Let's see what we get with some more variation. See, ideally, I'd like it to be exactly like that, but slightly different. So now you're getting all these different things. Let's do another one with 0 variation. It's 0.1, but I'm just calling it 0 because it's all the way to the left. Yeah, again, see all this sort of noise. Oh, there's 2. Let's see what it does with there's 2 little things there. Yeah, just ignore the other one. But yeah, these are meant to be generating drum samples. But you can get some weird and fun results if you just kind of try some other stuff. Let's try stab, some sort of. Let's try that weird old school hit. See what it does. Let's try variation in 0 again and see what happens when I generate. The key is staying the same, and it's almost like this weird lo-fi version of that. But nothing too crazy. Let's try let's try way more variation on this and see if it'll drumify the stab. Because that's kind of what I would expect it to do, since it's mainly meant to be a drum sample generator. Yeah, see, it's now taking that sort of fundamental, whatever note that is. I don't have perfect pitch. C, and it's taking that C, and it's keeping it there. So even though these drums now have basically a C fundamental to them. All of them kind of do. That sounds like a tom right there. So it took this and then turned it into a tom. So it's pretty fun. Like, I mean, as a sound design tool, even at this point, this is, I don't know, it's very inspiring to me. If I want to make one-shots, I'm 100% going to use this thing, like, right now. And even, like, if instead of just browsing sample packs like I normally would, I would just have this open, like, on my computer on here on the side, and I'll just, like, throw samples in there and, like, you know, just see what it comes up with. Because ultimately, like I said, like, sometimes when I'm looking for a kick or something, I already have a pretty good idea on what kind of kick I want. And sure, yeah, there's a lot of kicks, and there's a million kick libraries out there, and I can browse and eventually find one or tweak it or design one from a sine wave. Like, there's a million ways you can skin the cat. But this is just interesting because, especially consider, like, where this is going. Like, forget about what it sounds like right now. Think about where this thing will be once it's like V1 or, you know, V10, like a couple years from now. Take this scenario, for example. Like, this is getting into actually some weird murky waters here. Like, what happens if you take a snare that you really like from your favorite record, like you know, or you take eventually when this works with loops, like you take Billie Jean and you just throw Billie Jean into this, like the drums, of course, like, and it just spits out a new version of that, but that just sounds like Billie Jean, but a variation, but just really dope. Why would I go to a sample pack at that point? Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why would I do that? If I can give it exactly the parameters that I want it to follow, and I won't have to search for something. Like, I can just tell it to make me something. What is that going to look like if I can feed it, like, you know, like if I'm actually trying to, like, imitate a record, the way of a record sounds. Like, this is getting, like, maybe, like, way down the line in future, but you could consider, like, giving it, like, a full mix, like a master version with drums and everything, and, you know, it'll spit out, like, a very identical replica of, like, a Earth, Wind and Fire track. But it won't be Earth and Wind and Fire, and it won't be that master, and you know what I mean? This is starting to get into some funky, murky sampling, copyright territories that we have no idea about yet. And of course, forget about text to sound, like the mid-journey of music. Like, of course, that stuff is coming too. But anyway, I'm interested in this kind of stuff because these are the tools that are going to still enable people to create, you know, the sort of combination of man and machine is happening here, you know. Just curious where this is all going, but it's going to be super fun to follow, and I would highly recommend you try to keep up with this type of stuff because it's A, super fun, B, moving really fast, and C, super fun. Here's the thing. We're at the beginning stages of this type of technology now, and there's a few different pieces of technology like this out there, but to me, it's fact that I'm personally not going to be looking for certain things in sample packs anymore. Like, I honestly don't think I'm going to be looking for certain types of kicks, certain types of snares. First of all, I already have every single which type of trap snare on the planet. I don't need any of those. Like, if you're making a trap sample pack of trap one-shots, I will never look at them. I mean, unless, I don't know, maybe you're making something like completely next level, then cool, good for you. Technically, like, I don't even know. This is borderline weird gray area of copyright issues and sort of futuristic copyright laws, and like, basically, because what you can do now, I can give a program like Deep Sampler a snare that I love from a record that I love. I can isolate the snare and I can give it to it, and it'll spit out an identical sounding one, but it won't be the one from the record, but it'll sound like it. It might sound even better. So what does that mean? Like, especially if it can give me like a one-to-one replica of it, but it's just a different waveform. So even just, you know, like, I'm sure people have probably seen this stuff about AIs being able to catch, you know, minuscule samples from records. Like, there's been a few articles about Google Assistant being able to find just even like 1 second samples from like these Daft Punk records that people haven't been able to identify until now with AI assistance. I'm just wondering, like, let's pretend we're like 5 years in the future, or let's go crazy, let's go 10 years in the future, and this deep sampling type technology just advances and advances, and we're no longer talking about this sort of baby stages that we're at right now, which are already really impressive. Let's say we're 10 years in the future, and this stuff is just ridiculously good. Let's say I have a sample, I really love the drums from a System record or something. I can get rid of the vocal with tools, I can just get the instrumental, I can even split it to stems if I want to with something like La La La. I can get the drums fairly close to sounding good, or whatever. Even there's probably going to be a section somewhere that I like that it's just the drums. Usually there's a little break or something. There's a snare, and it's like, cool, I love that. I throw it into this, next level sampler, and it spits out exactly that, but just a new novel version of it. And this is, by the way, all talking about just taking a piece of audio that already exists and then giving it to AI and having it replicate that. Kind of like what Midjourney's new describe feature is like. You can give it a picture, it'll give you the prompt out of the picture, and then you can sort of reimagine that picture as a new version of it. I mean, we're not even talking about text to audio, like the Midjourney for music is coming. I mean, it's kind of sort of already exists to an extent. It's not there yet, but it will. It's just gonna happen. What does it mean when I can take your favorite sample pack in the world and take a snare from that sample pack, put it in to this AI, click generate, and boom, it gives you that same snare back, but just now it's like your snare. But it's exactly the same, slightly tweaked, it's a different waveform, it's objectively a different waveform. It raises some questions for me, A, like I said, what does that mean for sample packs? Why would you ever want a sample pack ever again? If you can just grab somebody else's snare and then have it create a new snare out of that snare, and now it's just your snare. Can you create AI to detect regenerated versions of original material? You know what I mean? Like, is that possible? Will that be possible? Will it leave some sort of watermark? I mean, people have tried to come up with watermark ideas for music and waves and audio waveforms forever, but they don't really ever work. So I don't know. I think loops and stuff like that are gonna be kind of okay for a while. And I think, like, even from my perspective, like, I'm working on potentially maybe a sample pack. I might want to make a sample pack eventually, but I don't know if I'm gonna be spending a lot of time on one shots. Like, I don't know. Like, I might do a few, maybe just for fun. It's fun creating one shots. But other than that, it's like I'm not gonna. I really don't think that's the future of sample packs. I just don't think so. I guarantee you, companies like Splice are just like scratching their head hard right now, and if they're not, they should be. Like, what does sampling look like? What just sample packs look like in the future? Everybody will keep creating their own, like, sort of collection of samples. I think that's going to happen, but just the workflow is faster that way. Of course, you're going to have your go-to sounds. I don't necessarily know that I'm going to be getting those go-to sounds from other people necessarily, like, in the same type of way anymore. I wouldn't even mind paying for this type of service just to have, like, an infinite array of samples that could be almost anything. Instead of going and searching for the snare that you want, you just give it a snare that's already kind of like it, and then it just spits out a new one that's now yours, I guess. A couple, like, household things here. The things that it's really good at right now are, like, clean sort of basic kicks, clean sort of basic snares. By clean, I mean, like, ones that don't have, like, certain types of things that would be categorized as having a lot of character. Like, it's not very good at that sort of stuff yet. Like, if you try to give it, like, some sort of acoustic-y kick with, like, a big, boomy, cool character, like, with some sort of cool verby spring verb tail, it's not going to capture that kind of stuff right now. But if you give it, like, a clean EDM style or, like, just a nice, solid kick, it's going to be able to do that pretty well, I think. I mean, so far, it's generating that kind of stuff for me very well. It's also doing that with some certain types of snares. I honestly think every single type of quote-unquote, like, traditional trap style drum hit is already like, it's already doing those like really well. If I was a trap producer, I could survive easily without ever opening up a new trap sample pack library of one-shots specifically. Not that I would ever, I've never ever used a trap loop ever, and I probably never will. I just won't. Okay, that's subjective, but I won't get into all that. But what is more difficult is, you know, like I said, like things with character, things with sort of like that wonkiness, the sort of emotive humanness. Those are still not quite there. I guarantee you they're gonna get there. It's not gonna be too long. And it'll be interesting to seeing these types of things start to tackle actual loops, hi-hat loops. Just imagine if I can throw in like just a drum loop from the top of Beat It, and it'll give me Beat It drums, but just different, just new, just slightly varied, just inspired by. Again, this is getting into that funky territory of like, what does that mean? What is the copyright there? How does that work? You know? And especially like with the slider on, you can imagine you have that slider of different variations of it. If you're keeping the slider as close to 0 as possible, so it's basically trying to replicate your exact same sample as close as possible, if you're always keeping it there, and it's just sort of taking the existing sample but just tweaking it slightly, like at what point does it constitute a new sample? Like at what point is it a new sample and not just some sort of applied waveform changes? I don't know. I think it's just a fact now that one-shots are kind of starting to become more and more non-important for me personally to look for in sample packs. I don't know what the title of this video actually will be yet. The clickbait part of, you know, the brain wants me to title it like The Death of Sample Packs. I don't know, I think that's a little too dramatic though. Maybe I'll put a question mark in at the end of it. You know, The Death of Sample Packs? I don't know. Yeah, so I'm just gonna make sure that this video gets to the point like so fast. Just get to the point, people, you know? I don't know if you could tell, I'm having like an existential crisis about samples and snares and kicks and hi-hats, and what does it mean when I don't have to make my own drums? It reminds me of that post. Here, I'll just put it right here. You can just, you know, that one. I feel like I'm in like the Matrix. I'm in that bubble thing, you know, where they're born, the tubes in the brain floating in the tank. Maybe we'll all be, you know, unplugged soon and enter the real world. Makes me think about consciousness. That's it for this. Probably left out a bunch of things that I wanted to say, but you know, leave me your thoughts on this stuff. I'd be super curious to know. What do you think about? What do you honestly, like, I'm actually really curious. This isn't just one of those like, let me know what you think in the comments. Like, I actually do want to know what you think in the comments, or just wherever. Like, send me a tweet, send me a Insta DM. Let me know. What do you think? Where are we going with this stuff? What are sample packs in the future going to look like? What are you going to do with this technology? Where is your brain going with this stuff? Are you scared? Are you worried? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Are you stoked? Like, I think I'm mainly stoked. After all of that, I think I'm mainly just really stoked, but with this sort of glooming feeling of like dread. Like somebody could just press, like the nukes are just gonna fly off and we're all just gonna...
Just unplug the goddamn thing. Jesus Christ. That won't work, General.
Yeah. That's my... See what I mean by like me having this weird existential moment with samples and music and AI and all this stuff? I hope I got that out of my system. I kind of feel a little better now. You know, there's a chance I'm not going to even post this online. It's just like, this is like some sort of weird internal monologue. Maybe this isn't even happening. Maybe this is all a dream. It's 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 all a dream. I don't know. Okay. I'll leave it at that. Stay safe, guys. Oh, jeez. I hate clickbait. I hate clickbait, man. Clickbait's so dumb. Ugh.